Alright fellas, so for the first time in quite a while, I'm not working on the LTD. I got the blue car in here. What I did was got rid of the Holley intake, took that off, and put the Vic Junior on. It's not a real Vic Junior, it's a Chinese clone. I did some more work on the plenum area, the runners, because when I first got it, all I did was kind of match the ports to the heads. I didn't really do much in the plenum because I didn't know what you're supposed to be done. So in that time since then, I've looked at a lot of pictures. Pictures are good. I like pictures. And then kind of read about it. So I kind of got a little better feel for what I needed to do. So I did that work, got it all on there. Essentially what this is, I want to try this. This setup's going to go on the new engine for the car, and I say new engine, it's actually the old engine out of Baby Pro stock. And those twisted wedge heads of mine, these are twisted wedge heads, but they're done by Panhandle Performance. They are going to go on Vincent's 331 for his Capri when we get to that point. I had run this setup on here before, but if you recall, the coolant temp sensor in the back, I put it in there because it wouldn't clear the fuel lines here. Well, the fuel rails, or this end fitting that I had, you know, the crossover, because I had it, so it was like so, kind of down this way, so it went down and around behind the distributor. Didn't clear the temp sensor, so I went over to Pensacola Friday morning, or Friday afternoon. I got this. It runs around the front of the distributor. Not the most ideal thing, but it worked better than this. I had initially flipped this around, so it went up over the top, but it spark plug wires were kind of like really tight across it, and I didn't like that. So went and picked this up, and eventually, when I get the other engine in it, this is going to go on there, and I'll run this with a factory speed density processor with a chip, and this, you know, to kind of compare the two. I really think this will go faster just because it's eliminating, you know, some bends and curves and whatnot. And of course I'll put a hood scoop on here. I'll have the Boss 429 style hood scoop. Been looking at a bunch of them. There's all kinds of different ones made. Of course there's different levels of quality and whatnot, different sizes. There's some that are just look like cartoon caricatures. They're like 6 inches high, and I think that would look a little ridiculous. So I'll put that on, run them both, see how they work out. The real issue with speed density is you cannot have any vacuum leaks. And you know, you can run a cam that has less vacuum, but you got to tune for it. I had run a B cam on this setup before, and it worked all right. But like Rod had put the B cam in the Baby Pro stock when he still had EFI, and with all the vacuum leaks that was going on with it, it just ran like crap. You know, obviously it's going to go faster with a carb versus having you know, the long runner intake with all the bends and whatnot. So the same principle is going to be on this. I think this will go faster. Still going to be EFI though. Down the road, maybe it'll swap it over to carb to see what kind of difference it makes. As long as the intake manifold's the same between an EFI and a carbureted, there's really not going to be much difference except for like drivability and whatnot. The carb might make a little bit more power just because it's got the fuel in the air charge, so it's going to cool a little bit, but other than that, they're going to be pretty close. So that's what's going on with this. Going to pull this out of the garage later on today when it gets light and the neighbors are up, and then bring the LTD in here. I got to swap injectors. I got 3 injectors that are kind of sketchy. One's pretty bad, and 2 more are kind of, I got to get them cleaned. And then this week we'll start working on the heads for Krusty, and then I got a couple intakes I got to work on, get them on the market. So just giving you an update what's going on with this thing and what the plans are in the future for it. All right, appreciate y'all. Later. Also, figured I'd throw this in here. The reason the fans are running, because guess who told themselves like 3 times to make sure I put a plug in the back where the coolant temp sensor was, and I didn't do it until I was putting antifreeze in. This guy right here. Yeah, probably 3 times at least. I gotta put a plug in it. I gotta put a plug in it. Well, guess what? I forgot. It's rough getting old, but it beats the alternative. All right, fellas. Appreciate y'all. Later. So, back again. One of the things I noticed about getting older is I get way more absent-minded. So what I was gonna mention too, when I use the 4-hole throttle body, I'm trying to find an old air cleaner housing, like from a F-150 or the Ford Lincoln full-size cars that they put on them from like the 60s and 70s. I'll put a picture in the thumbnail of one I had on that first LTD wagon I made. I just took an F-150 truck air cleaner and the snorkel, and then I got another snorkel at the junkyard, and made it a dual snorkel setup. I want to do that with this too, but I can't find one. I found them on eBay, but they want $40, which isn't a bad price for a full air cleaner housing, but then they want like $60 for shipping. That's kind of ridiculous. I don't want to pay $100 for one. But if any of you guys know of one or can turn me on to one, let me know. Like I said, I got a scheme in mind. I got something in mind I want to try to make, but I need to have one of them first, because they clear everything on here that the aftermarket ones don't. So if you see of one or know of one or have one in the out back, whatever, let me know. And the other reason, or the main reason, if you're wondering about why I'm pulling this engine, it runs good enough to be a daily driver, but it's got a leaking head gasket. You can see a little bit of the discoloration down there from the head gasket, and it's got a weird vibration above like 5,000. So I just been driving it back and forth to work, and not getting on it or nothing like that. So that's why it's coming out. And I'm gonna do a bunch of other stuff while it's out. I'm converting to manual brakes. Gonna move this stuff here, the line lock and all that, kind of neaten that up a little bit, and do some other stuff, maybe get a little weight out of it. So that's the plan. Maybe later this month or early next month, depending on how some other things go. So that is all, again, for the 3rd time. Anyway, forgot about all that stuff. All right, so appreciate y'all. Later.